Hello, today is Wednesday, October 26th. I'm Sifu Michael Fuchs, and I would like to welcome you to the debut edition of a new show here on Wethersfield TV 14. It's called Ancient Arts from Modern Times, and with me tonight is a special guest, Sifu Richard Hamel.
Thank you.
And we're going to be talking about his history in martial arts and Tai Chi and Qigong and various things related to those subjects. Now, since it's our first show, I want to just talk about what we'll be having episodes regularly here at Wethersfield TV. If you're interested in seeing them, you can go to wethersfieldtv14.com and see their whole lineup of shows, including this one. But Ancient Arts from Modern Times, what it's going to be about is most Americans have heard of martial arts and Tai Chi and yoga and meditation and Reiki healing arts and various other arts related to these things, but not every American really may know much about them. So the show is meant to be, one, entertaining. We're going to have all sorts of wonderful guests for you, and then educational. So, you can learn about this stuff and find out why you yourself may want to get involved. And so that's the basic gist of it. Again, tonight we're going to be talking about martial arts and Tai Chi and Qigong. And if you aren't sure what those topics are or what that means, Mr. Hamel and myself will be getting into that in depth. I myself, again, I've been involved in these arts for about 35 years now. Chinese and Filipino martial arts, Tai Chi and Qigong, various types of meditation, spiritual arts. I'm a published author. All sorts of different things. I've worked in the medical system and educational system and the prison system and all manner of special needs groups. I'm what you would call as a junkie. So kind of 24/7, this is what I'm thinking about and what I'm interested in. Even as a child, I was born in 1964, which is coincidentally right around the time that Sifu Rich here began training. So he's a great guest because the arts in our culture are so new. It really wasn't until around World War II that the first Americans really were doing much with martial arts or Tai Chi, and it was a very small group of people. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sifu Richard Hamel, and we'll probably just use our names after that. But
everybody calls me just Rich.
Rich, yeah, and I'm Mike. Sifu, by the way, is a traditional title for a teacher, an expert teacher in Chinese martial arts, including Tai Chi. So welcome, Rich.
Thank you very much for having me here tonight.
Thank you for being here, and it's a pleasure. I've known about Rich for years, heard about him, but it's our first time meeting, and it's a great pleasure. This guy has a very fascinating and interesting biography, excuse me, of experiences and accomplishments in the arts. Again, he's a pioneer here in Connecticut and regionally and really nationally, because again, the arts are so new. So towards that end, let's just dive right into it. So you began your training in 1965, correct?
1965 in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
I got introduced to it by seeing a karate demonstration, and I liked it. I saw what it was, and I was more interested in learning how to fight.
Yep.
Being picked on in high school and grammar school, being a little guy, I said, I'd like to learn something about defending myself.
Sure.
So I went to the class, and then I said, well, when are we going to start fighting? I said, no, we're going to do some exercises. I said, I didn't come for it. I want to learn how to fight. And so the instructor, which is Robert Bodwin, who was a good friend of mine, and he passed away. He became Grand Master of the World Tang Soo Do Association.
Oh, wow.
Which is worldwide, over 300,000 students
Wow.
worldwide. And I attended the classes, and I started practicing and practicing and practicing. After a few months, I said, I really don't need to fight anymore. There's more to it. I started seeing that there's more to it for the martial arts than just beating somebody up, which was my original goal, because I was picked on. So I wanted to save my life. And all of a sudden I said, geez, I don't really have to do that anymore because I can spar in class, I'm having friends and stuff. So that's how I got into it, and I stayed with it, with Bob Baldwin, and working at Cuno, where I was working, they sent me to New London to work with the shipyards. So
And can I just, and how old were you at this time?
I was 22 years old.
Okay, so you're a young guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was, I was working on, I was in engineering, so I went to New London to work on the submarines.
Mm-hmm.
I was designer.
Oh,
so
wow,
I
great.
was working on the
Awesome.
piping system and the filtration system.
Mm.
So I didn't want to drive all the way down there all the time. So I stayed there on the base 4 nights a week, and then I would train in Kyokushin karate down there. There
Okay.
was a drill sergeant that was teaching it. And so 4 nights a week, I would spend 3 hours a night doing Kyokushin karate, come home on Friday night, and then on Saturdays I would do my Tangsudo.
So you were training constantly, as much as you could.
As much as
Yep.
I could.
Mhm.
As much as I could. So that's how I got into it. So
Okay, great. Now, so Sifu Rich here has mentioned a couple of well-known styles. Again, for the public, perhaps you could explain, and first of all, I want to credit your teacher, Grandmaster Boudreau, because he, how'd you say?
Baudouin.
Baudouin, I'm sorry. Baudouin, excuse me. He obviously taught you the right way, because
yes.
martial arts, again, there's so much more to it than the fighting. My instructor used to say, the art you can see, the physical stuff, including the self-defense, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could explain to the audience the differences between, in simple terms, Tang Soo Do, which is a Korean art originally,
Correct.
and Kyokushin Kai,
Yeah.
which is originally from Japan, a very, very famous teacher from the 20th century, Grandmaster Masoyama, very legendary guy.
Yeah.
So maybe you could explain the differences a
The
little.
two styles were completely different, even though we use the word karate in the United States, which is really an American term, because it's really karate or karate. And
Maybe you could explain
Japan,
what karate means
Okay.
traditionally and the more modern understanding.
the originally came from Okinawa.
Right.
So Okinawa to Japan, and that meant karate. Kata meaning it was the martial art, and te was the way of China hand.
Right.
Well, when they started to bring it to Japan, well, the Japanese says no.
Right.
We can't. We don't want anything to do with China. So we're going to call it empty hand. Kata meaning empty, and te meaning hand.
They changed the Asian writing.
Yes.
People probably have seen is like pictures, and they had the same word kara, but they used a different picture to make it acceptable to the Japanese.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the difference. In Japanese karate, in Kyokushin that I was practicing, was more of a hard style, very, very rigid, and very
Right.
tough, and the training was very hard. Tang Soo Do came from a little bit from China and Korea. It was a little bit of Chen style Tai Chi and a combination of Subak in Korea. And
I hear there's also Northern Shaolin style.
there's also
right.
Shaolin style,
Which is a very flowing.
It's more flowing.
Right.
The circular motions of the kicks. The kicks were flowing. The punches were less punching, more kicking.
Right.
So there was a little bit of difference. Now that both teachers were totally different as far as who I trained with. In Kyokushin, he was a drill sergeant. Like I said, he was a drill sergeant. And it was come on, punch, hard, 50 push-ups and all that.
Right.
Where Master Baudouin was a little bit kinder. It was a softer style. It was a friendlier style.
Sure.
And it was no contact. So here I was, a contact on this coming, and you go to this class, it's a no contact class, very more disciplined. So there was differences in the styles.
Sure,
which
but
I enjoyed because I got to see
that sounds like a fantastic foundation, though, to get the two
of my
different
martial
styles.
arts career,
Right, yeah. Outstanding. Okay, great. So, excellent. Thank you for that. Now, you also were kind of pioneering in getting schools going, correct?
Yes. In 1965, when I started, there was only about 8 or 9 schools in the entire state of Connecticut. There weren't that many. And there was only 2 in Waterbury. And I went to Master Baudouin's school. In fact, he was only a first-degree black belt then. He just came back from Korea.
Oh, wow.
So
he really progressed
he
when
progressed
to
all the way up.
take over the whole.
I seen him grow from first-degree black belt to 9th-degree grandmaster
Wow.
in his entire career. But Where was I now?
You were talking about how you were opened up some schools in
opened up a
Waterbury
school.
and then
Okay.
later in Meriden.
And I opened up a school in 1967. It was my very first school. It was in Southington, Connecticut, in the Plantsville section.
Mhm.
And there was a bunch of friends that we got together that said, "Can you teach us this?" I said,
Right.
I don't know. What do I know about
Yeah,
teaching?
I'm just starting
I'm
myself.
just starting
right.
on. I just got my black belt. I said, what am I going to do? So, so we started opening up the school, and it wound up getting 20 students. I said, well,
Wow.
this is just a small studio. I mean, it's not even a store; it's a storefront.
Right.
A little grocery store that was there. Says, this is getting too big, and I had a lot of students coming from Meriden. So I said, well, why don't I open up another school in Meriden? So in 1968, I opened one right across the street from
And
the
you were still working
YMCA.
regular jobs
Oh
too,
yeah,
right?
I was
Okay.
working in
So
engineering.
you were a busy guy.
Oh yeah. So at night I was be teaching. So we closed the Southington school and opened up the Meriden school.
Okay.
And we wound up getting about 40, 50 students. And we were working out, in those days we worked out 2 hours a night for a class of 7 to 9. And then Monday through Thursday, and then Saturdays from 9 to 12, unless we were going to a tournament.
Mhm.
So that's where we started, and we had a lot of people that came up from the ranks in that school.
Wow.
A lot of masters came out of that school, because once
Really?
I
Okay.
left the school and got into kickboxing, then I sold the school to my grandmaster, and I was still teaching there and teaching other places. So I started getting into a little more different things, and so that's how those two schools got
Sure.
started.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. I mean, myself as a martial artist, I always love to learn about the history of the arts and to meet pioneers. And imagine you're a basketball player, and I hope Mr. Hamel doesn't blush, but you meet Magic Johnson or Larry Bird or some Hall of Famer, even if you never heard of him, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that's a great pleasure to hear about your background and how you got to start. Back in those days, it was very exotic, correct?
Well, it was totally different because people didn't understand what it was.
Right. It was very new, right?
Everybody, what's karate?
Right.
So we used to do demonstrations and stuff like that in doctrine. Today, everybody knows what it is, but in those days, I mean, let's face it, it was the
They
first
think they know
school.
what it is.
They think what know what it is. In fact, there were not that many movies about karate or kung fu yet. And so what we were doing is trying things out and trial and error.
Sure.
Because we didn't have other schools to look at and find out how they're doing things. So it was trial and error.
Well, the whole idea of having commercial schools was new.
Yeah.
Because it used to be,
Yeah.
The teacher didn't teach commercially so much.
Yeah.
Back in the old days.
Yeah.
Right. Now, one of the people that really popularized the arts in the West especially, but worldwide, I mean, he's still an icon to this day, is, of course, the famous Bruce Lee.
Oh, yes.
And you met Mr. Lee.
Yes, I did.
Perhaps you could tell us about that.
Yeah, 1970, it was the International Convention of Martial Arts.
First of all, can you explain what that was like?
What, the International
Yeah,
Convention?
because they're so new now.
It was
Now
a
there's so many
convention,
conventions, and this must have been one of the first ones of its kind,
It
right?
was. Actually, it was the second year
right.
that they did it, and it was in New York. The first one was in Los Angeles. This one was held in New York City at the Waldorf Astoria.
Nice.
And we had masters from all over the world in martial arts, not just karate. It was kung fu. There was all different things.
Sure.
And there were different seminars all day long, from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So one of the seminars was with Fumio Demora, who at that time was a 5th-degree black belt, and it was considered the greatest nunchuck teacher and practitioner. So in the class, there was about 30 or 40 of us in the class, and one of them was Bruce Lee. I didn't know
he was in Fumio Demora's class.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We were both students of Fumio Demora.
Interesting.
So he's there,
Well, Bruce Lee, I mean, for all the stories about his ego, that guy was a student. He wanted to learn everything.
Absolutely.
He wanted to learn and master everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I didn't know who he was.
Okay.
All of a sudden, somebody says, you know who that guy is? I said,
that's the Green Hornet.
He says, yeah, he says, that's the guy that used to be on TV for the Green Hornet. He says, oh, yeah, I think I saw that show a couple of times. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's an actor then, huh? So he's learning martial arts? No, yeah, probably. He said, no, he's really good at it.
Oh, yeah.
That's not phony stuff that was on the TV.
Right.
He says, oh, okay. So I got in the class. I talked to him.
May I just, there used to be a show back in, was it the early 60s or 50s, the Green Hornet? Around 61, 62?
In the 60s, in late 60s.
Late 60s.
Yeah.
There used to be a show called The Green Hornet. And this was Bruce Lee's, I guess, first acting gig
Yep.
here in the United States.
Yes.
He had grown up in Hong Kong and done all sorts of things there, even at a young age. His father was an actor. So The Green Hornet is where he got his debut, and the rest is history. So
Yeah.
go ahead, continue.
And so we're nunchucking all over the
Yep.
place and stuff like that, hitting ourselves in the head. You know.
The
And,
nunchucks is two sticks held together with a chain.
yeah.
So I'm sure many people have seen it, but if you don't know, it's a very common type of weapon in many different martial arts systems.
And
And you can hit yourself in the head
oh,
with
yeah.
one end if you don't know what you're doing.
Oh yeah. And so I talked to him, and he says, "Oh yeah." And he says, "I do the 1-inch punch," and somebody said he does a 1-inch punch. He says it's really slow, and then all of a sudden it's fast. You know, so he went, "Phoom," and like that. Ooh, that's pretty cool.
Did he hit you with it?
No, he didn't
Okay.
hit me with it, but he came very close.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
I've heard he had
Like that.
incredible speed.
Oh, he was so fast.
Right.
And
Right.
I says, "Well, let me demonstrate."
What year was this
my
again? 71.
1970.
So he was getting to be
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Very
so
skilled.
he says, "Here,
Yeah.
I'm going to put 25 cents in your hand. It's a quarter." He says, "I want you to close your hand real fast."
He did that with you.
and
Okay,
I'm going to see what I'm going to do with it. He says, "Okay." He says, "But don't open up your hand after." I said, so I went, "Phew," and then he says, if that 25 cents is still there, you can keep it. And I says, "Oh yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it." He says, "Okay, open up your hand." There were 2 dimes and a nickel.
Wow.
And I says, "Wait a minute."
He didn't just take the quarter.
Yeah.
He left you
He
something.
showed me how he did it. He put the 2 times and a quarter and a nickel in his hand like that, and held the quarter, put it in there, and then doing this
Yep.
in slow motion is,
Right.
and that's what he did. And
Well, you can see there's
Wow.
clips of Bruce Lee. He's so fast that even on slow motion, it's fast.
Yeah. Well, when he first did his audition for the Green Hornet
Oh, yeah.
to be on TV,
Right.
they did a tape, and you can find this on YouTube.
Yeah.
His punches and kicks were so fast that
They couldn't
the
see it, right.
camera couldn't pick it up because the TV was at 60 cycles per second. So
Yeah.
by the time it went out and came
Right.
back, they didn't see anything. He says,
Right.
"Well, when are you going to throw a punch?" He said, "I already did."
It's done.
He said,
That's
"Well,
like Muhammad Ali, right?
can
Did
you
see
slow
it?
it down so that we can actually see it?" So
Yeah.
what you saw on TV
Right.
was actually a slower Bruce
Right.
Lee.
Yeah, right.
Because he was extremely fast. Yeah, when he threw a kick, and you felt the breeze.
Right.
Before he even knew that the foot was coming up, it already got a breeze.
Wow.
So,
That's
but
amazing.
I got to remember though that I did not meet Bruce Lee, the actor. I met
Right.
Bruce Lee,
The martial artist
who
and
was
student.
a martial
yeah.
artist, but he was just a guy who was
That's
doing a
tremendous.
TV show.
That's a
So
great story. I love that story.
So,
Yeah.
So
'Cause-
later on, he became a big movie star.
Sure,
So I
right.
just like to make sure that I did not meet Bruce Lee, the movie star. I met Bruce Lee, the
Sure.
student.
Well, I think he considered himself a martial artist first in the movies.
Oh yeah.
He had a mission, to show the arts to the world, the true arts. Anyway, well, that's very fascinating. Now, so now there's another notable event that Mr. Hamel, Rich, was involved in that I would like to mention. That since we're talking about pioneering, you fought in the first full contact karate match that was legal in the state of Connecticut.
Yes, that was in 1971.
Now there's
And-
full contact everywhere, but it used to be illegal.
Yeah.
And even on TV, they would only let fighting be shown for a short amount of time. The standards on TV and in media was way different than now. So yeah, so go ahead. Yeah, let's tell us about that.
So that was 1971, and they just changed the law that full contact karate or full contact boxing was allowed in the state.
Oh, they didn't even allow boxing.
No boxing.
Really?
No.
Wow.
No contact was allowed.
There's
in the
been a
state
lot of great
Connecticut.
fighters that have come
Oh,
from
yeah.
Connecticut since then.
Oh yeah.
World champs, many of them.
Yeah, well, a lot of them, like Willie Pep and stuff like
Yeah.
that, came from Connecticut. But they fought elsewhere. They did not fight in
Oh.
Connecticut.
Really?
There
Pep
was no-
wasn't allowed?
Yeah, no
Really?
contact.
Wow.
It was out, I don't remember when they totally outlawed it, but the time
Okay.
at that time was outlawed.
Okay.
And
Huh.
so when they opened it up, I met a Golden Gloves. One of my students was fighting in Golden Gloves in Massachusetts.
Mhm.
So he taught me the boxing a little bit. And we found a boxer about my same weight and stuff like that. So we'll have a match. you can fight the boxer. You do karate versus boxing.
Uh-huh.
So I said, okay, that'd be fun. So we were practicing working out for a long time so I can learn how to get hit contact.
Right.
So fought the match, and Joe Rossi was the referee.
Oh yeah.
And you remember Joe Rossi?
I know
You've
about
heard
him.
of
I've never met him.
So he was the referee. And
if I may.
yeah.
Master Rossi was one of the very first Americans that brought Asian martial arts here. He was a Marine, right, in World War II.
Filipino karate.
And he learned a very rare kind of Kung Tao, like Chinese martial arts from Korea, from the Philippines.
From the Philippines.
Right. I communicate with Ron Kozakowski.
Oh, yes. He was one of his students.
Right.
Yes.
My teacher's very good friends with him.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, so Master Rossi was an even earlier pioneer, one of the very, very first, going way back. Yeah.
So we started a match.
Very deadly martial arts, too, from what I hear.
We started fighting and sparring and punches and kicks and kicking, and I knocked him out in the first round.
Wow. Now, what was the technique? A kick?
With a kick.
Okay.
Yeah, side kick to the face.
I was wondering about that because boxers probably
you've seen
wouldn't.
the picture. I think you've seen the picture.
Maybe I did.
On Facebook.
You
Yeah.
know, boxers wouldn't be prepared for kicks too
all
much.
Of a sudden,
Right. Oops.
Wow. So that was the first match, and I fought a few other matches after that. I fought 17 bouts.
Wow.
In kickboxing.
Uh-huh. Kickboxing back then is a lot different than at the health club now.
Yeah, we didn't have all the fancy gloves and the fancy equipment that they have today.
So, Rich, I could talk about martial arts with you all night long, but I know you also have quite an extensive background in Tai Chi, in Qigong, and various healing arts. So I think maybe we'll transition to that now. Again, I could sit here for hours and talk about this stuff. But for our audience sake, again, Mr. Hamel, if you know about Tai Chi, there's yin and yang, right? He's been through the whole gamut of the arts from, internal meditation and healing arts, which have helped himself immensely, as they have me, and many others, as well as we've been talking, the hardcore, martial arts. So perhaps you could, how you got introduced to Tai Chi. Let us know about that.
The full first introduction was really funny. Well, not really funny. It was at a karate tournament, and there was demonstrations, and this member of our organization, we had the Northeast Karate Association, and we had about 8 to 12 different schools in it, and we held a tournament and had demonstrations. So he was a Chinese person, and he did a demonstration of Kung Fu.
And what was his name?
Wing Li Quan.
Wing Li Quan.
Wing Li
Okay.
Quan. And he did a Kung Fu demonstration, which I loved because and I said, whoa, that's nice. I love that.
The Chinese styles have a lot of empty open hands, not just fists.
Claws.
Right. It's a very fascinating style.
And then he said, well, now I'm going to do a Tai Chi demonstration. And he says, okay, I don't know what Tai Chi is, but I'm sitting there. In those days, we were wise guys. This was a rough style in those days. It's not as disciplined as it is today. And
you had to prove yourself. If you were going to do something, you had to prove yourself. Right.
He did a form. He's just like this, and then all of a sudden he's doing
single whip.
That thing is, and after I'm going.
I don't mean to laugh, but I know what's coming next.
I talked to him, and he says, "What in the world is this?" He said, "Would you like to find out?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Throw a punch." So I threw a punch, and then when I got up off the floor with a bloody nose, I said, "What in the world was that?" I said, "This." Except it was done.
So
like
for
that.
our audience who's heard of Tai Chi and maybe taken some Tai Chi classes at the senior center or through the town or something like this, it actually is a fighting style. I don't like to refer to it as martial arts because it's not really military per se, but it's a very sophisticated method of protecting yourself as well as healing yourself and maintaining your health, kind of all combined in one. Like if you took yoga, meditation, and Kung Fu and kind of put it all together. So again, that's originally what it comes from, is the traditions of self-defense, but also more sophisticated where you could practice it your whole life. You can see Rich here is very fit. He's practiced for many years. I'm 58 myself. I'm still going strong. So it actually has a background, and not too many people nowadays know it that way. So just so you understand. So go ahead.
Yeah.
So you were introduced to the
I was
martial arts
introduced to that,
aspects.
So I asked someone, said, I want to learn some of this stuff. I still like my karate, but I want to learn the martial applications of Tai Chi. So that's what I did. I went to his school a few times, and he taught me some techniques.
Now,
and stuff like that
how would
and
you
stuff.
say the Tai Chi enhanced your karate?
Well,
in what ways?
It made it faster.
Yes.
Because in karate, everything is tension.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
Strong punching like this.
More efficient.
He taught me to become
Relaxed,
soft and
right.
relaxed, and then get the punch out later and
Right.
stuff. Boom. So it made it faster. Plus, I
Right.
learned how to roll into techniques rather than blocking technique.
Right.
And
We're going to show you some of this after a bit.
Yeah, it made it so fast that that's what I found that the techniques were. I got into this martial techniques of Tai Chi. I did not get into the true Tai Chi Chuan, which is the internal and understanding the Qigong of it. It was strictly the martial applications. That's what I started out with at that time, 1970.
That's great. Tremendous. So you obviously liked it.
Yeah.
And then you continued on and did more.
Then
So maybe you could tell us about that.
Later on, my wife
Because that became your major form of practice, right? Over time, Tai Chi.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right.
I was still doing karate. So karate was here, Tai Chi is here.
Right.
And slowly it went like this.
Sure.
Okay. So
That's very traditional in China, that people would start doing a different style, maybe not karate, but they would practice a harder, more external, faster, stronger style when they were younger, and then graduated into something like Tai Chi at midlife or older. So that's a very common thing traditionally.
Yeah. So that's how I got started into it. But I wanted to learn more about it. So
you had some injuries.
I had
correct?
some injuries, a
Right.
car accident when I was younger,
Yep.
and it hurt my back and it hurt my legs and stuff. I said, well, the karate is starting to slow down, and I need something a little softer. So we went to Omega Institute, which is in Rhinebeck, New York, which is a training center for holistic healing and art and the internal arts. So there was a man that was teaching it there, Michael Kraft, and I practiced on a 3-day weekend with him, and we were starting to learn the forms and stuff like that. And I said, this is pretty nice. So this is what Tai Chi really is. I said, yeah. So then I
Typically in Tai Chi, you don't go from fighting. You generally start from soft and work your way up to fighting. You're doing slow motion exercises, and it's very meditative. And then if someone was to persevere and have the right teacher, then they go to the fighting.
Yeah.
You kind of went reverse.
I went reverse.
Now, one thing I'd like to do, I want to welcome everyone to the show. I'm Sifu Michael Fuchs. This is Ancient Arts from Modern Times. And tonight our guest is Sifu Richard Hamel, who's a pioneer of the arts in Connecticut and regionally. And we're talking about his martial arts and Tai Chi journey here on, it's Wethersfield TV 14, and you can go to their website, WCTV14.com. And if you have questions on, or if there's topics you'd like us to get into, you can email the station here at WC, let's see, what is it? It's WETH 14, like Wethersfield, but WETH 14 at WCTV14.com, so you can send us an email. Hopefully, the shows are going to run the gamut from, martial arts and Tai Chi and meditation and yogic arts and all their various permutations, healing arts, modern applications of healing arts like they're used in hospitals and medical schools, meditation, all sorts of various topics from, at least once or twice a month. Tonight's our debut show. So again, let's get back to Rich Hamel. He's telling us how he transitioned from martial arts in 1960s, 70s style into Tai Chi and more internal arts and healing arts.
Yeah. So that's why I started up again, like I mentioned, at Omega. So I signed
That's
up
the famous Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York, where there's a tremendous gamut of all sorts of different spiritual and internal arts and meditative arts that happen up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I signed up for a week with Terry Dunn, who was a great martial artist, and he was doing the Chen Man Ching style of Tai Chi, and I practiced the form. I bought the DVD, and I practiced at home.
Yep. So Chen Man Ching is another one of the pioneers of Tai Chi in the United States. In fact, one of the very first grandmasters, a legitimate grandmaster that came from China. He settled in New York City, and would split his time between Taiwan and New York City. And many, many notable teachers learned from him, originally here on the East Coast. I met his daughter, who's a wonderful, wonderful lady. I never got to meet Master Cheng. I wish I could have, because he's kind of a hero of mine. But another very famous teacher.
I did practice with learn from his daughter,
Katie Cheng.
Yeah, Katie Cheng.
She is wonderful.
She's in Texas, not in Texas.
Yeah, I met her.
I did a sword form with her.
Ah, okay.
So fantastic, just fantastic.
She's a very wonderful lady.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
fantastic.
I met her. This is a funny story. I was invited. The Arthritis Foundation put together, I'm sure you're aware, a Tai Chi for Arthritis program.
Yes.
So my teacher and myself, and going back to my teacher's teacher, Dr. Daniel K. Pai, another very famous pioneer, who was another guy that Rich met. We could talk about the people he's trained with forever. But so I was invited to be part of the first class to learn their program because we had connections with them. And in the first day it was a 3-day seminar, my partner was this middle-aged Chinese lady, and we did a typical workshop thing, introduce yourself to your partner. So ladies first, I said, okay, you go ahead. And she goes, oh, I'm Katie Cheng. My father was the famous Grandmaster Cheng Man Cheng. And I just stood up like, what? You got to, out of the blue, And then we spent every waking moment for 3 days because we were like, peas in a pod, with love and Tai Chi. So,
Yeah, she was fantastic. She's an incredible person. Yeah, so
so you got into the styles influenced by him.
Right. Style.
Right.
And then I attended another seminar a little later on with William C.C. Chen, who happened to be a disciple of Chen Meng
Right.
Tsing.
He lived with him.
He lived with him. He was one of his top students, and he became a grandmaster.
Yep.
And my wife and I both took the Tai Chi a week with him.
Great.
And we did push hands, which is a Tai Chi form of sparring. It's a very just touching hands.
Push hands is like Tai Chi with a partner.
Yeah.
So you're doing Tai Chi movements and exercises and learning various skills that you don't learn by just doing it on the air.
Yeah.
Right.
So we did practice. So I got into that. And then I signed up for a class in our town. There was a school, the Central Connecticut Tai Chi Chuan.
David Ritchie.
David Ritchie's school. So I signed up with it because I wanted my wife to continue on with the Tai Chi. So we both signed up and took classes over there. And after a while, I became actually a teacher there.
Awesome.
I taught the advanced classes there for 10 years.
Wow.
At his school. And
Awesome.
And I also helped along.
I met Mr. Ritchie once at some sort of conference we were at. He was there and I was there, and very nice guy.
Probably at the did you ever go to the Tai Chi galas or anything?
No,
like
it wasn't there.
Tai Chi Park, probably.
No, it was in Connecticut.
And
this was maybe around the year 2000, some sort of event. There was all different holistic practitioners.
Oh, yeah.
And so he happened to be there.
Yeah.
I was invited to be there, and I saw him. I had, of course, I had read about him and heard about him, so I went and introduced myself. And he probably doesn't even remember me, but we chatted a little. Nice guy, very nice guy. Yeah.
So that's how I got into the Tai Chi end of it.
And now, with the various health issues, like you have an asthma issue, and
I have.
How has the Tai Chi and all this stuff helped you with these health issues?
I have bronchial asthma.
Now, they told you by the age of 50 you'd be in a wheelchair on oxygen.
Yeah.
As you can see, he's not.
Yeah. It was 27 years old, and I was coughing up blood every morning.
Oh, my
coughing
God.
up blood and passing out practically and everything. So it was pretty bad. And the doctor said, if you live to be 50, you'll probably be on oxygen and in a wheelchair.
Wow.
So I said, I don't think so. So that's when I got involved
with
Qigong. Qigong was healing exercises. And
maybe you could explain about that a little.
So the Qigong was, the exercise I did was more for internal, working my lungs and working for the breath.
Okay.
So I learned some various moves to help my breathing.
Right, yeah.
Because I not only had bronchitis, I had an underactive thyroid. So that just put a lot of kibosh to a lot of things. So if you hear me coughing, it's because my airways get closed and I have to to open them up. Now in those days, I would be hacking to open them up. Now I just
sound
a
pretty
light
good.
cough. So now I consider myself on borrowed time thanks to Qigong and Tai Chi.
Well, you're doing great.
So I'm in my 80th year, and I still feel like I'm a teenager. At least some
Good
people
for you,
say
man.
you're
God
like
bless you.
one at least.
Well,
I
listen,
still like to dance. I still like to sing. I just love to play.
Well, a lot of it too is just attitude and spirit.
It's attitude. It's
and
attitude.
learning Tai Chi and these arts, when it's done well, it's for our mind, it's for our spirit, And when I say that, not so much religion, but just like good spirits, good energy. And our body and breathing, as Rich mentioned, it's a very holistic, all aspects of ourselves, which he's going to talk about some more. So Qigong, again, yeah, this is, some people may have heard of this. It's another ancient tradition from China and really all over Asia. They have different names for it. But there's different kinds of Qigong. And again, what Rich is talking about is the healing Qigong. Essentially like meditative exercises that, again, this has been like Chinese medicine. It's ancient. And it, excuse me, it can have a very positive effect on the body. I've experienced it myself. So yeah, why don't you talk a bit, you know, Rich is a very experienced presenter, and maybe some of these, you know, analogies to explain.
Yeah. How I teach is metaphorically.
Like all the good teachers, a good teacher uses everyday language and examples, and Rich is a master at this, so please.
Okay, one of the things that I think about is, think of your body as a car. If you have a beautiful car out in the driveway, and it's beautiful and shining and everything, it's beautiful. Oh God, look at that, I got a beautiful Corvette. And you're looking at it, and it's just like looking at the body of a person. Oh, beautifully, physically fit. But you get into it, and you start it up, and it goes,
bad engine.
Oh, the engine is, well, yeah, it looks good, but it doesn't run very well. Or you can have it just the other way around. You could be, you know, not that great of a physical body, but you get into it, and just like the car is rusting a little bit, it needs a paint job. You get into it, start it up, you're
Runs
at
like
the Indy
a top.
500 all of a sudden,
Right.
you know. So you don't judge the body by what you just see. You do need the physical fitness. I believe in the 3 forms of physical fitness. First of all, you need to have anaerobic, which is weightlifting or weights, working with weights to tone your body. Aerobic, so that you can work the lungs and the heart. And then internal. So the internal is what the Tai Chi and Qigong works on mostly. One of the things I always tell, but we always look at a person's body and say, wow, look at those abs. Look at that. Look at that biceps. Oh, man, that's beautiful. Has anybody ever walked up to you and said, wow, look at that pancreas. That is really something. Look at the, oh, my God.
Can't see it.
Your
Right.
liver is just
Wow, your
turning me
breathing
on.
is tremendous.
My God, it's unbelievable. I can't believe it. My God, your kidneys are incredible.
Right.
Nobody does that. Maybe a doctor, but nobody else does that. But these are the things that actually work your
Right.
body. So
course.
I think it's very important to understand that you need to work your body in different ways, in all 3 ways.
Right.
And keeping the internal. A lot of people say, well, I go to an aerobics class, or I go to the gym.
Right.
Well, how about going to, how are you exercising your lungs? How are you exercising your kidneys? There's exercises for your kidney? Yes. Are there exercises for the stomach? Yes. Are there exercises for your digestive system? Yes. Most people don't do that. But in Qigong and Tai Chi, you are working those organs. Like I mentioned, I have bronchial asthma. One of the best techniques in Tai Chi for me was wave hands and clouds. It's a technique called wave hands, and it works like this. Now this works the heart and the lungs, and it also works the blood circulation. Now when I'm sick or something like that, I put eucalyptus oil in the palm of my hand, and then just breathing it in. So now this is my healing. There are a few techniques in Tai Chi that I find to be extremely healthy. This one here is my #1 favorite because I have bronchial asthma. The other one is working all the internal organs. Now, a lot of people don't work the internal organs or exercise. They're doing this.
Sure.
They're
Muscles.
muscles. Boom, boom, boom. I can do that. I can do this and stuff like that. Or I can do aerobic. But what about working the internal organs? So very important to work those things. I have exercises that I do with Qigong, which for the digestive system alone. I have other ones that work the kidneys, working the spine. One of the things that people don't work on enough is the spine. So to me, the spine is probably one of the most important parts to exercise.
Rich, if I could just, let's get right back to that. But another part of this internal training is, even in a more generic sense, is when we train in Tai Chi and Qigong, it helps us to relieve stress. because we're working with our mind and body and breathing, and it initiates stress relief for people. In modern days, there's so much stress with media and everything, so that's something else that's very important.
Yeah.
But please.
So that's one of my metaphors, is to work on the body and stuff like that. And another one is, well, when we're practicing Tai Chi consists of a lot of techniques strung together, which is called a form. Or it would be like watching a floor exercises in gymnastics where they're doing all different types of things. So in Tai Chi, we have a form, putting the moves together. And a lot of people say, well, that's just too much. There's too much to do. There's too much to learn. I says, well, just think of it this way, as the ABCs. Okay, when you're a little child, you're learning A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Okay, now you learned the alphabet. Now what do you do with it? Okay, is it useful? Well, think of every technique in a form as A, B, C, D, E, and each one has a letter. So you learn. Now
Learning the alphabet.
Do with it now. So I can learn. I can put things together. What is it? Okay. How about taking the letters, and putting them in different sequences, like learning how to spell cat, learning how to spell dog, learning how to spell this. So now the letters mean something. Now they're not just there. And once you get into that, so when you're starting learning Tai Chi, you're learning the ABCs. Then the next, you're learning how to write a word. The next level, as you keep going, is learning how to write a paragraph or a sentence. And then you're going to learn to write a chapter. And then from a chapter, you'll learn to write a book. So there's always something to do.
Oh, yes, it's very deep.
It's not just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's putting it all together. So Tai Chi, when you're learning, a lot of my students stop at the ABCs. In other words, they're learning the techniques, and that's all they want to do. They're fine. We're learning. We're moving around, and that's good enough. But more students will say, well, I want to be able to put these together. Well, let's break up the form. Don't do the form. Break it up. That's learning to put the words together. Mm-hmm. So now when you're doing that and going into different postures and doing it freestyle,
right.
So you're going to the next level. Mm-hmm. So there's so many levels to Tai Chi. So no matter how, a lot of students, especially older students, they want to go to level 1, maybe 2, maybe level 3, but they're learning to root, learning to understand the martial applications, learning how to put it together, maybe even enter competitions. So there's always something to do. No matter how good you think you are, there's always something higher to learn.
I think too, just to emphasize, yeah, it's a very deep art. It's I'm a beginner after 35 years, is how I think of it. But even some practice is very beneficial. You don't have to, not everyone's going to be a master teacher, expert. For people who have that aspiration, as Rich is saying, it's endless, really. But at the same time, even a little practice, a couple times a week with some home study, has great benefits. So yeah. Now, so we're kind of getting a little short on time.
Okay.
Maybe, would you like to show some on the air, some movements of Tai Chi?
Yeah. One of the things I think, the difference between, say, the hard style versus soft. A lot of people say, well, Tai Chi is too soft. I mean, there's no, how can this be a fighting art and stuff like that? Well, Tai Chi is, you learn it by going slow, but in reality it's, okay? So the moves are very fast when you're doing them in actual application.
And there's a
you're
training
not
program.
Get into a barroom brawl by doing this.
There's a training progression too, from the slow to the fast, right?
The reason is that if I just did this motion here with the hands, and you say, well, that's great, but in reality it's okay. But if I taught you that, you would never learn it, because you're not getting the internal aspects of the draw and push, and learning to roll your arms. It's the whole body. Everything you're doing in Tai Chi is the entire body. It's not just, okay, I'm using my hands.
Tai Chi is a very sophisticated kind of movement where every joint moves together, right? So you go slow, as he's saying, right, to learn it.
I'll show you what we can do with a punch. So a person throws a punch. A hard style is, this arm is very hard, okay? You can't move it, okay? So if I went like that, see, the arm's not going. I'm hitting him. See, he's a martial artist. That arm's not going anywhere. So if he was really trying to hit me, most probably it would hit me, because I can't get it out of the way. But in Tai Chi, we do things softly. So he's trying to push that arm hard. But see how I can move it? I can control his arm and then strike him. So the Tai Chi is here and here. I'm in here, I'm in here. Boom, 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 I can strike. Okay? So it's all soft. So as I control in here, I can control the whole body. Okay? But the person doesn't see it because what happens is I'm not doing it as a hard style where this triggers the brain. It signals to the brain right away. The brain then says to the arm, oh.
Right.
And it tenses up. It happens in a millisecond.
They touch you so soft, your body doesn't respond to it. Right.
I can push somebody. People don't realize that I can actually push somebody. And can you stand up again? I'll show you what, like a typical push, turning this way. So if I wanted to move him, I say, get out of my way. And I do this. You notice? He's not going anywhere. Because, again, it went to the brain. But if I just, this is a Wu Ho style, if I just touch him, see how he moved? Okay? So I just step in and push. The body moves. But if I do this, nothing's going to happen. So when we're sparring and stuff like that, that's how we do it. The Wu Hao style is very soft. But actually, some of the students think, wow, I mean, I don't have to do this? No, you just, the whole body just going to flow right into it. So that's one of the beauties of Tai Chi Chuan. I was mentioning about the spine. Now, spinal exercises are very important. Without the spine, and this is another metaphor that I teach. And think of the spine, and it's not discs and vertebrae and all that. That's just too technical. That's medical people. Think of the spinal cord as being just a rope. With a rope with hockey pucks and sponges in between them. So that's your spine. So that your cartilage is your sponge. So what happens to a sponge when it's dry? Crinkles. That's why older people start walking like this. Because the sponge isn't working. So we got to keep that sponge wet. So your spine is designed to move into different directions.
You see how nice and straight he is.
So you want to keep that wet. So as you wet, so you got to do this to a sponge, you got to do this to a sponge, you got to do this to a sponge. So a lot of my spinal exercises are raising it up, opening it up, close on this side, close on this side, opening it up, turning the spine, working the spine, compressing the spine, opening up the spine. So I'm working all the energies in the spine. So if you work that energy, it's always going to be in alignment. I had a very bad back injury back when I had that car accident. He said, you might have to have spinal surgery. And I said, I don't know. I don't like the idea of being cut up. So I was doing all of these spinal exercises and stuff like that. And that's what the doctors say, I don't know what you're doing. But
keep going.
There's nothing wrong with your spine.
Yeah, keep going. Right.
Keep going. Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it.
Right.
So that's the beauty of the art. And one of the other healthy moves.
So, Rich, we're kind of getting a little short on time. I know we could talk all night.
God,
I really appreciate your time.
I can be here for 3 hours.
Right. Well, we'll definitely want to have you back so maybe we can explore this, the healing aspects some more.
Yeah.
So it's been great talking to you and learning about your history, and I appreciate you coming down and sharing your experiences very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mike.
And so we're going to wrap things up again. Wethersfield TV 14, WCTV14.com. You can check out Ancient Arts for Modern Times. It'll be up soon enough, and there's many other great shows here. And so I want to thank you all for joining us, and again, thank Rich and thank everyone in the booth.
Thank you.
We just made history. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Oh, that went well.